There I go. Hi, everybody online. Hi, everybody, and friends that came from Bainbridge. My heart is just like booming right now. It is a cozy, cold night, and you guys chose to be here in this intimate space. And thank you to Enlighten and your whole entire board for having me. And this is going to sound really funny, but thank you for pronouncing my name so well. Um, Part of belonging is hearing your name. And when someone says it correctly, because my name is Chasity Malatesta, that's a lot of syllables and can be butchered in a myriad of ways. And I won't repeat those ways because I'm in the high school a lot and I hear it, but thank you. It means a lot. I am super excited to be here. And in all those names and all those introductions, what you need to know is I'm a mom and teacher by trade for 23 years, advocate by birth, born into resistance. And as Black History Month is upon us, the shortest month, by the way, that's been stolen by lots of other headlines. Frederick Douglass died February 20th, 1865. So we're honoring our ancestors. And I am telling stories from my own lived experience as an African American who lives on Bainbridge. But I honor Karen Akuye Vargas, who's our storyteller elder, as well as Barbara Lawrence on the Suquamish tribe. That wasn't me that made that noise, just to let you know at home. And Gina Corpaz, our Indopino, who talks about the Indopino and honoring thy mother, as well as our mayor right now, Clarence Morawaki, who talks about the forced return and never let it happen again. And the reason why I bring them up is to honor, and the land we're on still belongs to Suquamish people. And so I'm here because of those stories, but I was born into resistance. It would seem that African Americans are just so good, like we're just so good at resisting. But the fact is, we were born into resistance. A stolen people, right, brought to stolen land, and then we're born into conversations that I now have to have with community members that they've never had before. And Tuesday night, this is how current this was. We're in a room full of folks talking about ICE and talking about the threats to our neighbors. And I realized in that room, none of the people in that room had had the Black kid talk. I have a father, African American, a mother, very white, very freckled, very red haired, recessive Irish. But I was given the Black talk early on. And it was the version where a single mother who didn't really understand the Black culture could have with a Black child that presented Black. And that version is a little bit different than if my dad had been around. And it went something like this. Chastity, when you go out, don't fuss up, don't mess up. If there are police around, you need to kind of go by my side. Be quieter in spaces and make sure you don't take up too much space. So understand that I was born into resistance. I didn't choose it. We look back on the civil rights. We had students that walked out for a particular event at our high school, and for something else, they would walk out for ICE just last Friday, but they walked out and they were using verbiage from the Martin Luther King "I Had a Dream" speech for something else. And someone said, why would they do that? And I said, well, what have they seen in history? Who have they seen? As far as men, who have they seen protesting? Who have they seen? And they've seen African Americans time after time after time again. They're seeing African American, many women fighting back and resisting. They haven't seen resistance from their mothers and fathers. And if they have seen resistance, it came at the dinner time table stories from the elders. We always pass on the most wonderful, juiciest, most horrible stories in our families, like birth stories. You ever wonder why some of them so traumatic, so awful, yet remembered? It's because they were where they were able to survive something. We walked a million miles in a snowstorm. We suffered under famine or depression, but those stories carry on because what you're really telling them is that you're here to tell that story in resilience. So as we celebrate Black history and Frederick Douglass today and my elders, I am an example of that resilience. So I'm making history by being with you here tonight. So we celebrate that. But I was so excited that I'm going to ask my beautiful helper here. Am I down here for the slides? Yeah, man, you have to help me. I'm right here. Next one. Like that? Is that what you want? Love it. Just out there. Thank you. I needed that. In talking to folks right now, we're realizing that we're under a little bit of a siege of information. Between AI and information, many of you are being hosed, and I mean hosed in the biggest way, like a fire hose of amazing, awful, terrifying, good, shopping, consumerism stories. We're being inundated. And so I'm going to start. I switched up my presentation to put something in the front because I couldn't just go into talking about hope. And because hope is a proactive strategy. And so tonight, when you leave here, I'm going to get back on the screen. I realize you guys are there. It's really important to me that you leave here with this. You're going to see a lot of things coming at you. And what I want you to do is observe, not absorb. It's coming at you as a strategy, a proactive, definite strategy to make sure that you get tired. And we're not going to do that. Even tonight, there was wonderful news that came out of the Supreme Court. And we need to understand that we can observe everything that goes on. And when you're talking to folks at home who maybe can't be here or talking to family members, observe, not absorb. And it's really important because we're trying to protect our joy. Our joy gives us our ability to keep going. So we're going to observe, not absorb, and we're going to protect our joy. And many of you in this room that have faith understand that you have a tap in that most people do not have. So unfortunately, you have a greater responsibility to spread that part of your faith and that part of your joy. So observe, not absorb. Okay. And the reason I put this at the front of my slide is because for those of you at home, if you're cooking or walking your dog or talking to your family member, you only need to pay attention for about 11 minutes. I'll come back to this, but this is really important. You have to pass on this to 5 people. Don't care who, 5 people. One is that all of this fire hose of information is bringing about a lot of anxiety. People looking at the news, and I want you to think of an action. A little action, any action that you can do. D, disrupt the doom scrolling. And some of you know I'm really good at it. You're probably not good at it, but I'm really good at it. And it looks something like this. I'm going to look up a news story. Ooh, rabbit hole. I'm going to go down this murder, something, pedo, something scary. I'm going to go down and look at one more news story. And then 2 hours later, I have now gone to the crime scene in New Hampshire on E Street, and I don't know how I got there. And then I want to turn to my husband and I don't want to pass on my doom. Did you know I'm not passing on the good stories? I'm passing on the most traumatic, juiciest, terrible story I possibly can. So we have to disrupt our doom scrolling and do something healthy, whether it be go for a walk, whether it be do something. You can still have it, like give yourself like a Snickers bar worth of doom. Like fun size. Half an hour. Set your timer, turn it off. Disrupt the doom. Do something healthy. I suggest walking or moving your body. Do something in alignment with your values. For many of you in this room, that could be pray. That could be your spiritual practices. Something in alignment with your values on voting. It could be one small movement that allows you to and participate very much locally. We're winning in a lot of ways because local folks are now practicing this mutual understanding. Your local neighbor, your local civics, your city council, your school board, we're winning there. Why? Because people are looking around at each other in the eyes in real life and saying, we do care about democracy. We do care about freedom for our brothers and sisters. We do care about, we're fighting right now about affordable housing. We do care. And we must be able to do this together in real life. We have a whole entire generation who are in digital form, feeling like they are living their full best life digitally. We need to be together in fellowships again. Now, we may not be able to get people to go to their local churches, but we need to be understanding that we need to be together. Isolation causes exhaustion. And protecting our joy. Adapt, joy. You guys say adapt. Adapt. And If you can pass this on, it would be the best blessing to me, to 5 people. Adapt and joy. When they tell you they're tired, when they tell you it's too much, when they tell you I just can't do it anymore, know this, that part of them is just exhaustion. That is a plan. And since much of the things that were going on with all of this administration that went on in the e-files that I won't even talk about, much of it went on in the plantations. So you don't see a lot of Black folks blinking. We're surprised that maybe some of you didn't understand history to know that all those things were taking place. And so for this one time, a woman walked down in Bainbridge and said, I guess we're all feeling Black now. Now, some of you may be very offended by that they would say that, but I need you to understand that the veil has fallen in so many ways. And the hope maybe isn't in us having these institutions all come back together the way they were formed, even in politics. Maybe we're supposed to be reimagining something that actually included everyone. I won't go as far because in NAACP, we have to be fair and neutral, but understand as a Black woman, I wasn't even born neutral. I don't know what that means. And I'm neurodiverse, which means I probably will say the uncomfortable thing first. But in order for us to have hope, real hope, hope is a flex and a muscle. It is work. Hope is not passive. Hope does not come to us on a buffet. We don't get it in a postcard. We actually have to work to have hope. Black folks have been holding on the resistance and having hope despite the rejection, the anti-Blackness, the unwelcoming spaces, the unwelcoming faces of our children. Despite it all, have to side-eye and know that we have hope. And that means tapping into a spiritual understanding. Lift Every Voice anthem wasn't just made as an NAACP ode to Lincoln. It was an ode to our past and our resilience. Darkness, times, lift every voice and sing. And that resistance singing, I was talking to my friend Sarah, who came so sweet tonight, who's an actual singer, because I'm not. I like to be next to singers, to listen to them, to be in fellowship with them. But that voice of resistance in the gospel songs was strength and it was courage. It was fellowship, and we're passing to each other energy. I'll come back to this. Hope is not passive, it's a practice. In times of injustice, hope becomes resistance. It's a call to action and not retreat. And it's important because for those of you that know how to flex a muscle, it's practiced. My one tiny superpower that I was born with was the fact that my mother, who was medically very fragile, I had to figure out who I was kind of on my own at times. And I wouldn't say that was a blessing, but I'm slightly neurodiverse and it is a superpower. So in those unwelcoming spaces, I just made myself feel welcome. Now, that could be problematic for those in the room, being that I had to believe that I belonged, and I had to believe that others like me belonged there too. And so in a way, I became a conduit for hope because I didn't believe the lie that was handed to me that either women, Black women, didn't deserve to be in spaces. And that came from a strength of whatever trauma my mother and father handed to me in those stories, in those traumatic stories, that we were stronger than what was handed to us in a world that wasn't created for us. I work a lot with young people, and one of the best ways for folks to have hope is to tell the truth. And I'll tell you why. Young people, 100% want us to see what they see. So in conversations around poverty, in conversations around Palestine, in conversations about faith, in conversations about race, they want us to affirm that we see what they see, not what we want them to see. And believe it or not, that's allowed me to have hope, because not only do I know they understand what's going on in the world, They don't want to be shielded. Now, I'm not saying show them everything, but I'm saying we have to begin talking truth. I live on Bainbridge Island and I love it. And I wish we also told the truth about all the stories. Because if we told the truth all the time about the forced removal, which we do, I think they do an amazing job at the memorial. But if people embodied those stories of the forced removal, there's no conversation about ICE that would happen. If they embodied the stories about race and about the fact that the canneries housed Chinese, African American, and military, if they knew that everyone belonged there, there wouldn't be the othering with affordable housing. If they knew and they understood their own history, they would know that the footprints of so many others, and more importantly, our Suquamish brothers and sisters, need to be honored there. So if they understood and they spoke the truth, this land does not belong to us. It belonged to other people. It was built by marginalized people, by the same class and the people that are now running all of this chaos. We had that same system a long time ago. This wasn't new. We were just comforted in the veil. We liked the blanket. We liked the predictability of the blanket of oppression. And until they really started taking away our rights, some people didn't get uncomfortable. But being in community means we have to be uncomfortable. And thank goodness for some of our neurodiverse kids that are telling the truth out loud. And neurodiverse adults. So whether you are in a community spaces, boardrooms, dinner tables, refuse to normalize harm. This is the way it's always been. No, it's not. Truth is a soil where justice grows. So when we tell the truth, when we tell the absolute truth, that we didn't actually fight for women's rights during a period of time, for Black and Indigenous and marginalized people, there was no good old days. If to make America great again is to make people disappear of what they deserve, what they think is great. And I can't even imagine a democracy or a world, a nation, a community that didn't have all the blends and all the seasonings of the people I see in this room and online existing. Hope is a muscle. You must tell the truth. And this is hard. If people knew that it only took 3.5% of the population to move policy shifting, and they knew 3.5% is all it takes. If they knew that, they wouldn't worry about the polling numbers. They would worry about taking the pie to their neighbor and making sure that across the street and around the corner showed up to the community meeting. We don't have to do all things, but we need to be good at loving thy neighbor as thyself. Build circles, not silos. This is my favorite one. So can you humor me for a second? I don't know what it is about this that seems to be difficult in Kitsap County and beyond. I think we're really good at being social. I think we love to organize. And I think we like to organize in really Nordstrom ways. Does everyone know the store Nordstrom's? Okay. So can I use this example? It's kind of a consumer example, but they're very particular about how they organize and who belongs and who doesn't belong in the organization. Oh. I've even been told how to organize as an African American from someone who doesn't necessarily identify as African American because they were so good at it. So we have so many experts in Kitsap that are so intelligent, so they went to the class, they took the feminine course, they understand critical theory, they understand critical thinking, and they have some advice to give. Understand in organizing, it may not be people that you agree with. And in fact, it needs to be with people that you may not agree with. It is, thank you for saying that. It is very hard because I think now Black folks are watching this. We knew we had to take crazy uncle, and I mean that crazy in the most mentally health respectful way. We knew that if they belonged to us, we had to take them all. They all are us. I am no different than an unhoused African-American woman on the street. I'm no different than someone who's fighting addiction and needs relationships. I'm no different than someone who's in a home right now fighting for housing, working with Deborah Jackson in Bremerton. I am no different. because I am like any other African-American woman and can be in a second. One medical event and I could be. And so there's not a lot of separation. I understand my humanity exists in elevating all of those in order for us to all to rise. The ideology that we can other, even in organizing in these healthy spaces, comes from years of white supremacy. The idea that I have a certain way and a certain movement, and we go this way, similar to faiths. But the truth is, community is uncomfortable. It can be challenging. You're not supposed to agree. And in fact, some of the best organizing is getting people together who don't have the same skill set, who can be good at other things. And that means you may have to talk to Uncle Carl for the hour at the side of the church. It could mean having to be in community. And I don't mean that in a classist way, because here in Kitsap, it's stratified across the way, and we have a lot of othering, especially in affordable housing, especially in who's responsible. If everyone loves thy as themselves, that othering would no longer. But we know that's something we have to confront. So whether it be gathering in community living rooms, parks, or online, a shared meal, a biscuit with your grumpy neighbor, isolation is a tool of oppression. And in fact, we invite many people who maybe don't think like us to community meetings at MAC. And one of the interesting things is they really do have to hide from me. We're on an island. I'm going to see you in the cheese aisle. I'll more than likely see you in the milk aisle. And we invite every single one of them. Part of my hope is not that they will come, but that they all were invited. No one, no matter how grumpy, how oppositional, how critical, is not going to be invited. And I could be terrible and I might ignore you once we get there, but know this, you will be invited. Protect your joy, laugh, dance, and sing. This is not frivolous. Hope requires that you fuel yourself with your joy. It could be your thing that you practice. It could be Sarah singing in the mirror. I'm assuming that's her hobby because she's good at it. It could be making space for beauty where you find it. But in amongst your organizing, in amongst the world coming and crashing, you have to find your joy. I don't have a wonderful voice. Nope. I'm not even a knitter. I would like to be one because I think it's really calming and cool. I have 3 sons and they would do bad things to my yarn. I would love to tell you that I have a hobby, that I'm a great artist, but I'm a lover and I'm a fan. I'm a really good fan and supporter. And I love young people. I really do believe that part of the hope and what I tap into, the reciprocity that I receive from listening to young people and from being in community. I don't think I'm that special. I'm a pretty good teacher. I mean, I have some stuff. I have high energy, but I do believe in the power of connection and community more so than anything. In rooms where there might be oppositional thinking, I am excited about finding ways or opportunities to connect. And I think that for those of you that have that tiny superpower, right now, more than ever, you're needed. And I'm not saying you need to know everyone. I'm saying in your circle, there are 5, 10, 15 people that only you talk to. That is your gift. That is your group. That is your circle. And that circle connects to another, and you have a responsibility to that circle. Make space for beauty when things unfold. I started this with storytelling a little bit about why I give so much honor to the Suquamish, to Karen Vargas, to Gina Corpus, and to Clarence Milwaukee, because they taught me the stories of the island in which I live. And as a result of that, I'm responsible carrier of those stories and that expectation that we be a welcoming, inclusive island. So when people come in and say, oh, you live in Kitsap, it's one way. I have 4 stories. I can carry these stories. So understanding history is not just a ask. If you want to cultivate hope, you have to know history, and you must know history of where you live. Because when you speak to your neighbors about your street, Callahan, Wheaton Way, or you talk about that area, you can say, once this story, let me tell you about the people who lived here and how inclusive and how welcoming we could be. You have to carry on that history. That makes you responsible for the hope. You flex the muscle of understanding. You don't need to understand everything, but it means you get to listen and be into community. And if you don't know your stories, I have an opportunity for you. And that is to, again, to love your neighbor, to find out the stories that you don't hear about, and to make sure those stories get told. And if you are a sneaky carrier of stories and you have not given them out, there's another opportunity for you to make sure those stories don't end with you. Mutual aid, right now, there are some wonderful examples here in Bremerton and several places, kind of quiet texts in Bremerton, and several places have really begun, if you know Kit, have really begun to work its way because people are seeing that it's worked. Mutual aid has always worked. It's always worked. Does anyone know? Give me a definition. And for those of you online, I'm going to hold up, but I'll give you the definition. Can anyone give me a definition of mutual aid? It's a simple one.
Helping everybody.
Yeah, that seems to be really easy. And when we talk people about making sure in your neighborhood you have some sort of mutual aid, and that just isn't the one guy that you borrow the tools from, but really what mutual aid is, people think it's so complex, but it really is just saying, hey, I have this, you have this. Is there a need that we can take care of? And examples of that giving is a major blessing, more than even receiving mutual aid. And you can do that so easy by saying, I have this, you have this, we have needs for this. Shared resources, skills, or care. Build networks that don't rely on systems that fail us. Now that one gets a little uncomfortable. Don't rely on systems that fail us. In the Black community, I can immediately tell you a system that has failed us that we do not rely on.
What is that?
Well, I'm so glad you asked. Since she asked, when we look at the system of police, you'll see different stories to different individuals. Mm-hmm. And I am with the NAAC Bremerton branch. We have a strong relationship in building with the police community, and have had one for a very long time. However, as a Black mother, my conversations with students with the police is very different. Mm-hmm. So understand that there are systems in place, but oftentimes, unfortunately, even in Kitsap County, the people that are going to be prosecuted and or brought in and or detained will be young Black men. And so I have to know two stories. You're a young migrant boy. I'm going to probably have a different conversation with you when we go out for a field trip than I do with a young cis white male. So understand that there can be dual and a dual understanding. And that's why those stories are so important. If we're doing that on the side and you see folks doing that, there must be something wrong with the system. If we're still seeing patterns of incarceration that are deeply impacting one group of individuals, we can't say, but I love my police officer, Bob. You may love your police officer, Bob, but it doesn't mean the system was designed to be healthy for all of us. And if the system wasn't designed to include all of us, then should it be for any of us? Solidarity is stronger than charity. Giving away $1 versus a solidarity of, I see you, I hear you, and I want to know how I can support you, is worth millions. Solidarity is stronger than charity. That doesn't mean you shouldn't donate to every cause that you care about. In this time of oppression, we're talking to young people. One of the questions that I asked my friends, I've been asking this quite a bit of my mom counterparts and teacher counterparts, is what are you creating? Because in a time of hardship and oppression, when we're being hosed, with an administration that believed in authoritarian regime, we stop creating and we start reacting. It's really important that you're continuing to create. Our artists and our performers are going to be the ones that are going to help us reimagine a way out of these systems. So if you are a creator, if you are an artist, if you do art, if you are a writer, we need writers really bad to tell the truth. We need writers to become journalists, to become news, to tell the truth. We need artists to reimagine things we haven't even envisioned, because we've been so locked on the United States plantation of the same system that we haven't been able to recreate. We need our artists. I'm not even an artist. We need them bad. Art is a mirror and a megaphone. The art that we're seeing now and the art that was going to come out during these period, the student said, is it going to be like Dark Ages, where we're going to see art that comes out of this? Yes. We're seeing hope in places where, and they got you so confused with the fire hose of information and executive orders and memes of Michelle Obama and all of this stuff, that we've forgotten to turn our eye toward where we start to create. Where do we create? Where do we go? Our hope is going to come flexing that muscle and creating. And I say that as a challenge, and I say that as an action. And so students that you see that are doing art, young people, whatever it is that you access in that gift, let creativity be your lantern and use that in your organizing. Use all of them. And rest as resistance. Rest is not a reward. I'm going to say that again. You don't earn your rest. You don't go, I'm going to do 5 hours of labor and then earn a rest. Burnout is not a badge of courage. We have leaders across the board, and especially in our African-American community, that are tired. They've been pushing on resistance since birth. And then people are like, what are we going to do about this? Who's going to protest? Let's put them in the front of the lines. Black folks are tired. Rest restores imagination and allows us to create. It is revolutionary to rest. They want you reacting all the time to news and events. They want you doom scrolling. If you can turn your heart, turn your body, especially your body, and allow it to have the rest it needs, then you have energy to write the letter. You have energy to call the neighbor. You have energy to whittle on your hobby and organize. 3.5% is all we need, connected community, to push policy and change. And I believe that hope is there. It's in us. It's in relationship, and movement. Yeah. Oh, thank you. Interrupting harm. When I ask the young people what they most would like to see, and that is that when they see something harmful, they want someone to say something. And oftentimes what ends up happening is we see something harmful, we question whether, and we're so polite, we're so kind. Fascists aren't. We're so kind. We're like, oh, I can't really run for that office because I'm just unqualified. Do you know how many unqualified people ran for positions this year? Right. We need to practice restorative responses to harm. I can't believe you're doing that. Are you really saying that racist thing? I was in our Safeway trying to be incognito in mom sweats, gathering the few items because I have 3 sons, which means I cook all the time. And there's never enough food in our hollow-legged children. And an altercation was taking place between a child and a parental figure that was very negative. And my middle son, who's like a quiet tree climbing sniper, looked at me and said, you're which means take care of that situation he just saw. And it was inconvenient. And I really wasn't dressed really well, and I didn't want to offend anyone. And oftentimes I'm vulnerable by the fact that I'm a 5'7.5" African-American woman who can look very intimidating and aggressive to my homogeneous neighbors. And I wasn't feeling it. Like, it wasn't my mood. I wasn't feeling like I wanted to be the, civil rights person. I just wanted to be the mom that had to get chicken. But in that moment, I needed to interrupt harm to show my son that I meant what I said and aligned with my values. And it was an inconvenience, a little embarrassing to say, hey, we don't talk like that to kids. But it was important because I was letting him know he saw harm and I could interrupt it. Uncomfortable right now is what we need. We need people to be uncomfortable and not worry about rules. I know I'm saying that to people that probably are really good at following all the rules. Some of them weren't designed. They were designed to keep us in a gate and not designed us to keep us revolutionary. Silence is complicity. And I say that as a person who follows the rules because they will find me. I'm easy to spot. But I understand there's good trouble. And then there's great trouble. And for my son, that was great trouble. Now, that person still doesn't talk to me. And sometimes I say the wrong thing. And sometimes I say things loudly that are absolutely cringy and uncomfortable. But erring on the side of seeing truth, I would rather be than being complicit to harm. I'm going to get it. Reclaim ritual. I love this so much because as a family who has lots of deacons and pastors in my family, they all have rituals of faith. Whatever it is, your rituals of comfort, your rituals of faith and spirituality, I think it's more important than ever in any time in history. And I'm sure they said that in the Dark Ages now. I'm probably repeating some. But right now, your roots of your purpose and your why, I'm not saying everyone gets super spiritual and whatever, but if that's your jam, I would say that it reminds us we're not alone. Rituals are not practiced just as individuals. It's important that we practice our rituals together. So whatever it is that you do that taps you into your purpose, that's hope. That gives you that sustained hope. My favorite, dream forward. Envision the world beyond the crisis. When things get really harsh, you can do with your groups or your church or your youth or whatever, you can say, what if, and I'm not big on trafficking in hypotheticals because I think as a Black woman, I try to traffic in reality as much as I can. But also I understand that I know a lot more trauma than I know about being creative. So this is a practice for me. For me to envision the world beyond crisis, beyond things that are confronting our people, may be difficult, but it's important for me to design for liberation, not just for survival. Like, if we're envisioning a world for just this moment, we're not getting it. We need to envision what tomorrow is going to look like for our grandchildren and for our children. What would the system look like? Because the sacrifices have to be made, and bless their hearts, those dear souls that passed away in Minnesota. Did it take that? Did it take that to have more of the veil drop, that anyone could be vulnerable? Did it take that for people to know, even though people warned they're coming for us? Did it take that sacrifice? So we have to design for liberation. And real liberation is liberation for everyone. I most recently had someone come up to me and say, collective liberation is not for everyone. I think she forgot that I was an African-American woman. This was at TNC. Mm-hmm. And I said, I have to believe that collective liberation is for everyone. I have to believe it's for you in order for me to see it one day. Because while some people have received reparations, African-American folks have not. And as a result, I live my history, I walk my history, and I understand my history. But I have to believe that it has to be for everyone. When affirmative action, it helped white women more than anyone else ever. So I want there to be collective liberation. I want everyone to receive it. Hope is a blueprint where we build it together, but it is a muscle like going to the gym and working it out. And so I get super excited because when we talk about this, the responsibility isn't that hope is going to come, but that we're going to stretch our muscles and we are going to walk in a proactive hope. It is active, it is dynamic, and it requires us to be in relationships. And so isolation, doom scrolling, the practice takes people, it takes us being in fellowship and together. Plant it, water it, share it, defend it. We truly are the ones that we're waiting for. One of the things that when researching even portion of this for hope, I was thinking, why is it that I walk into rooms and there can be a lot, and when I tell you a lot of conflict, and it doesn't distract me. And I think it's because it's so easy to see the conflict in our leaders, in our government, in politics. It's so easy to see that. And I think it takes more practice to see the opportunities when things are falling apart. I had a woman come and say, aren't you just so devastated that these systems, the medical systems aren't working and these other systems aren't working? And I was like, I don't think so, because they were never designed for me. So I wonder if they were designed for everybody's, we wouldn't be seeing such a restrictive right now. It would be inconceivable that not everyone was included. So maybe it's supposed to fall apart, but that was not her comfort language. That was my neurodiverse blurt. But it made sense to me. These systems will crash until everyone is included, until we understand that collective liberation must be the goal. And that is hard. You would think that we'd be like, yeah, we want everyone. But we're still in that system, old ways of thinking and doing and being. Right. And so adapt, enjoy. And when I say adapt, I get super excited. One action, a letter to Drew Hansen or to Tara Simmons or Greg Nance, an email to your local school board or to your local congregation saying, hey, we need to talk about these things, or to the neighbor you didn't talk about, didn't see. No doom scrolling. Okay, if you're going to doom scroll, give yourself a time limit. Okay. I'll give you 30 minutes of Snickers doom scrolling. Okay. Then align with your values and move that energy into something more helpful. Be proactive in participating locally. And if you don't know your local church, your local organizations, get to know them. Your stories are powerful and you're needed. Do it together, meaning having fellowship. One of the action items with students was that participating in protests wasn't enough, just standing. Because, on our island and out here, there's like places you protest and then you're kind of stuck there. Like we're protesting on a corner. What do you want to do with that energy? Does that energy from that protest need to go to Kitsap Immigrant? Does that energy from that protest need to go and support one mother dealing with maternal things? Does that one protest need to? And here's why that's important, is we're not just taking energy to get together and be like, we're complaining, but we're taking that energy and moving it to an action item to say, the reason why I have this energy is because of the hope I see in redesigning the system in the future. Every time you step into action, you are actually reigniting your own hope. Doom scrolling saturates it and takes it away. They want you exhausted. They want you overburdened. They want you sitting in a slump and being like, there's nothing that we can do, when in fact, the Supreme Court already dropped the tariffs. The anti-DEI and anti-equity measures with the National Education Association, the ACLU, won. So the teachers and the administrators hopefully may be rehired, but the grants that went along with them that supported marginalized learners, that supported social and emotional learning, that means some of that money will go back. So even if they're running everything, they're losing all of the parameters on which that administration was trying to stand on because of people. Now, if you lose a soccer game and you have every single player strongest and doing everything else, and you still lose, you must suck. You got the Supreme Court, you got all of this, and you still can't push through the things that you thought you were going to do the most damage, because in all of the veil falling, we found out what we loved. We found out what we stood for. And maybe, I'm not saying it, but you didn't hear it from me. Maybe you did. We needed to be reminded what we truly cared about. Democracy is not a privilege. Black folks have known we were on a plantation for a long time. Some of you just cozy up and finally found the fences. You were on the same plantation. You may not have been suffering the same abuses because your melanin was different. So in order for you to have liberation, we must have liberation, and liberation for our immigrant brothers and sisters, our indigenous brothers and sisters. And women need their rights back. Our collective power and unity is strong. We have much more. Adapt and protect your. Any questions?
Look out that lots of organizations are using for professional development. It's called the Science of Hope.
Yes.
Is this coming out of that?
I've read excerpts of it, yes. From a lot of that work has come in organizing circles and how we're doing it. So those of us that worked in collective and community care, especially taking pieces of it to give immediate strategies. And so the strategy that I gave you with adapt and joy didn't come precisely from that, but definitely hails from many of the pieces. And the reason why we're giving people these strategies to not get exhausted is because we need them not to disengage. Because the news media, the AI, and many of the news reports that you're getting, we understand you're not getting all the news in the United States. And most of the people internationally know we're not getting the news. So getting you to the sources, one, of news that is reliable, two, making sure you understand your neighbor and your cohesive community circle and organizing, and your indivisible groups are going to be really important right now, offering mutual aid. Right now, as we're preparing for the possibility of ICE, many schools are doing modified lockdowns and safety groups. And if you don't know about the safety group or what parameters or what your neighborhood is doing when they do come, this is the time to enact. And I think by allowing people to engage with those relationships, connect with those fellowship groups, and find out their resources, what we're doing is we're creating almost like a modified practice drill. Who is your neighbor? Number one. Who is going to be your circle? What is going to be your action? And then how can we make sure that we keep you motivated and inspired and not disengaged and tired? It's really important more now than ever that we go back to the, IRL and in real life with folks. Mm-hmm. And not to say people on Zoom are very important, but to make sure that you're connecting with folks, even on Zoom, and that you're building those kind of relationships where there's going to be trust. You don't have to agree with everyone you're organizing with, but we're not going to do the horizontal hate and horizontal dragging when we're going through crisis. And that's really important. Not sure if it's the leveled off oppression that's hitting everyone, but there's a lot of agitation in organizing circles. And even in our Black community, we're seeing a lot of that. There can be no horizontal hate right now. And if it's heads they're going after, political heads, then you build coalitions. You don't need to be the head cheese in order to have a strong coalition. What you need to have is a bunch of people willing to do their part that they're energized by, the part that they feel fuel from, the part that they can continue in a sustained fashion. What we don't want is people to disengage and say, there's so much of it. No, there's so much of it because the news is making sure that they get those wonderful, juicy headlines. And how many of you saw that we got the federal stuff dropped for the grants? The ACLU won. How many of you saw that news story? Wonder why that's not top billing. Yeah. CNN. So understand that you're being fed a certain amount of information so they can get certain energy out of you, and so that you will disengage and then feel powerless, right? But we know in community organizing that we don't trust all those sources. We side-eye. In our community, we call it side-eyeing. We side-eye things. And when you see all that coming at you, you can practice your side-eye. Mm-hmm. That may be one way to look at it. but being in community and making sure you have the resources, because hope is a flex.
There's a couple of questions here on Zoom, on the chat. One is that they loved your talk. There's several comments commenting how much they liked it. Another one was that they were interesting that you your definition of othering, that it really is people who haven't been othered, they might not have understood that you don't other anybody. That was interesting.
Oh yeah. When it comes to living where I live and where we have sometimes extra added, I would say classism that either is expressed or narrated from a history, historically speaking, where people have come in. I'm kind of, what do you call it? An outlier for all reasons. But I go and people are like, oh, you live on Bainbridge. And I'm like, and then loudly in an awkward, cringy way, I will say, I'm Black on Bainbridge. I'm Black on Bainbridge, just in case we're wondering. Still Black on Bainbridge. And 10 years ago, it would have been like, oh, do you live here? Do you live? Where do you live? What's your property? Where do you live? Where do you live? It's not like that anymore. People never ask me because they don't want me to go, I'm Black on Bainbridge. Oftentimes they'll say, how are you? Black. I'm very Black today. It's still Black. I realize now what it does for me, and I'm giving you as a secret. I realized that I was creating space when I felt discomfort, when I felt othered. I didn't realize what I was doing. And now it makes me feel a little cringy. I think that might be uncomfortable. But what I was doing is making sure others that might felt cringy too would feel accepted and feel loved in that moment, especially students. So othering happens even in organizing. And why? Because some of you have read all the books. Okay, we know who you are. Some of you are just now coming into reading or understanding. And there's spaces for everyone in organizing. And just in case you're wondering, 12 books doesn't make you pro-organizer. 12 relationships can make you a pro-organizer. 12 books does not give you advanced degree of social. 12 friends that you're ministering to or being with gives you that grace and relationship power in organizing.
I have one. If any of you, though, have a chance to talk, does anybody have a question? If not, I'll have a question. One of my neighbors, I think, is not taking care of their child right. You know, you said about talking when something's difficult. And I don't know what to do about that. Their child is neurodivergent. And I think it's probably difficult to take care of. And so I wonder what my responsibility is.
Good question. But I'm going to turn that question on you. And I wonder how uncomfortable it is for the neurodiverse child.
Child is only this big.
And I'll say it again. I wonder how uncomfortable it is for the neurodiverse child. Understand this, that neurodiverse kids understand way more than we recognize. They see way more. And I would say, in that manner, I would say we give help. The most strongest empathy you can give is to educate and empower a parent, and especially a parent of a neurodiverse child. I have a neurodiverse child, and I am not an expert. Again, back to being a fan. But I rely on community and people who are smarter than me when it comes to some of the questions about my child. And I think that we need to get curious before critical. You may not like the way they parent. However, we get curious before critical because you don't know the dynamic of the family. We're not trained counselors, and there are people that are trained to do that. And students, especially neurodiverse kids, they're amazing at telling you, grown-ups with all our experience and read books, how absolutely ridiculous we sound. They don't need to be fixed. They need to have a world that includes them too, and not to be othered. Yeah.
Parent is abusing child or something.
Report.
And
Yes.
this doesn't mean they're going to turn the child out of the home. It just means they're going to go investigate.
And sometimes they give them help. But again, I side eye.
Yeah. Yeah.
I side eye. Yeah.
And as a mother of a neurodivergent child, and being neurodivergent myself, I understand that people might have witnessed me with my bad parenting in a bad moment, but missed 100 times of good parenting
Sure.
in difficult moments.
I agree.
And so before calling an organization that can cause harm to families and has historically caused more harm in many situations because of misunderstandings, I would maybe start by building a relationship with the child to give respite to the parent. So they're better capable of dealing with the child because now they have a larger village supporting them with this neurodivergent child. That can be very challenging. Yeah. Especially at a young age where they can be little monsters because they have no concept of how they're physically harming you or their siblings. And as a parent, you have to keep your other children safe too.
Sue Ann added to the conversation that about having a neurodiverse child that may be getting treated harm, that the community could support them by being curious and building a relationship and offering respite, because that could be a bad moment, not a bad pattern for that parent. Thank you for that. Well said. Good question.
Well, and thank you for repeating that for the Zoom audience. Well, if there's no more questions, we can stop now and we can continue the conversation.
Thank you, everyone.